The recent events within Chainsaw Man has definitely been a wild experience. Situations that make us reevaluate certain aspects of the narrative prior, alongside understanding characters more deeply. Obviously, this has specifically revolved around Denji and Makima, with information being given to us that helps paint a more gruesome and terrifying image for how these characters are intertwined with one another. How Makima has been controlling the story for her own beneficial gain, and how Denji has to deal with all of these emotional gymnastics that has mentally deteriorated his mind. It's been quite an eye-opening experience, digesting all of this information with a side of massive and emotional character deaths that genuinely warps how you feel to where we are now. It's quite a lot to handle. But the next step towards building and shaping the remainder of the narrative and where it would go has started to take place, whether you're ready for it or not. Recontextualizing the narrative can sometimes be a dangerous thing to do. It's not the most difficult thing to pull off, but it's also not the easiest. There is an extremely fine line right down the center that's difficult to land on successfully. How new perspective, knowledge, and opening up our understanding further changes a massive portion of the architecture set prior. If you're not careful, you can easily make things seem overly polarizing, fickle, pointless, plot convenient, the list goes on. But if you stick the landing and stay on that fine line, the payoff can be tremendously impactful, with that said architecture retroactively changing to fit your new understanding and perspective of the story and its characters. Chainsaw Man just recently done this, with Makima being the catalyst for all these events, finding out what she is, how she manipulated the story and Denji specifically. I'd argue it made all of us sit back in our seats and think two important prominent things. One, I had a gut feeling that Makima was sick, twisted, and evil this entire time. And two, I hate Makima. I hate how cruel she is. I despise her. If you were anywhere close to this, even just a little, Chainsaw Man done its recontextualization properly. However, it doesn't stop there. What this chapter does is it takes that malice and hatred you had, gives it context to change its meaning once again, and allows you to see the full picture. But this time, it's not going to try and warp your emotions or even give you a reason to hate a character further by revealing their true intentions. Instead, it's probably going to make you question yourself, even your own judgment, even the legitimacy of these intentions. The story has changed once again. The perspective has shifted. A new lens has been placed over Makima to reveal something rather game-changing that not a lot of people might have saw coming. While the experience we just had with losing two incredible characters, Aki and Power, has now evolved into ushering in selfish and benevolent ideals, a confliction between your emotional connection to these wonderful characters and Makima's supposed betterment of the human race. With the opening out of the way, if you end up liking this video, consider subscribing. I'd greatly appreciate it. But let's take a closer look at how this chapter changes everything once again, by giving a righteous meaning and undertone towards such a twisted and malicious character. Coming straight off the complete annihilation of the Hell Devil, which I do think was in its full strength based on the idea of self-sacrifice to resurrect such a thing, we see Denji get dragged into hell thanks to a last-stand effort from a person pouring blood into the Hell Devil's mouth. With Denji in hell, it sets a nice stage and backdrop while we start to unravel some of the more deeper intentions surrounding Makima. Cool, calm, and collected. The typical three words that Makima upholds rather easily, never breaking composure, even when faced with imminent death. On the contrary, we find out why she hardly cares about staring death in the face, almost like it means nothing to her. This flow of information and reveals starts off with Kishibe confronting her with a pistol as they both watch Denji get dragged into hell. She confirms to Kishibe that he can shoot if he likes, but it ultimately won't do anything, as she's contracted with the Prime Minister of Japan, and that any attack upon her will just turn into an illness or accident for a Japanese citizen. Obviously, this is inherently broken. It doesn't necessarily make her immortal, but for now, nothing earthly or humanly can really do anything to even harm her, as it's just going to be redirected to an innocent person. This puts her on a rather high pedestal, and it's also rather difficult to legitimately take her out without imposing such damages to innocent people. Now, if she was as evil as we all thought, and truly wanted to destroy the world or control everything, even though there's probably some lenient caveats that could get her out of that contract, she's almost impossible to deal with, and the world wouldn't be looking too great. You'd either have to seal her away within an instant if possible, break the contract she has with the Prime Minister by potentially killing him, or use some other omniscient devil that could wipe her from existence, which, funny enough, we are somewhat slightly leaning in that direction. Turns out Makima is a big fan of Chainsaw Man, and for good reason. The reveal and better understanding we get for what the Chainsaw Devil truly is and how it functions goes a long way in creating a nice new foundation for the narrative to plan itself upon. Chainsaw Man is actually rather infamous, being titled the Hero of Hell, an individual that would track down any cries for help and completely obliterate the devils that are causing those cries to begin with. But he would also uncontrollably annihilate the same devils that were originally crying for help. Thus, you have this anomaly within such a differentiating devil structure where the Chainsaw Man would fight and kill any devils within his path, and if you were lucky, you may just get saved by him. Because of this sheer will to continue forward and the everlasting absurdity that surrounds such a relentless force, the devil structure would be completely unbalanced. In response, it hypothetically creates a more normalized base, where some devils would be enraged and try to fight Chainsaw Man, others would be scared and run away, while some would actually worship him, maybe even look at him as a prestigious savior of sorts. But what makes Chainsaw Man so inherently scary and powerful, a devil that other devils fear most, is when consumed by him, the name of that devil ceases to exist. They are completely wiped from the very fabric of everything. Now obviously this sounds extremely absurd. Both Kishibe and Makima recognize this, as the names past, present, and memories completely disappear, to a level even Makima herself can't comprehend or even acknowledge. To drive an impactful and opening perspective for this, Makima goes to mention horrific events, people, ideologies, wars, diseases, all stuff that has burdened and cursed humanity with its evil. All of it has completely disappeared and can't be remembered or acknowledged by anyone other than her, thanks to the connection with Chainsaw Man, I'd assume. The reason it's important to know this, and its overall absurd value, is how Makima plans to actually use Chainsaw Man to accomplish similar things. Originally, just like Kishibe, you would think such an evil, twisted, and malicious devil would completely destroy the world, but she has other intentions, ones that are definitely selfish but rather well placed and even progressive, implying that the only reason the Prime Minister contracted with her is because he believed that the future she is offering is highly possible and worth the risk. When you mix that with the better understanding of how her controllability works, where she can only control people who consider themselves below her, it takes a massive weight off of her manipulative nature to corrupt someone. It doesn't directly put her into a better or glorious light, but the extremely deep-rooted evil or horrendous amalgamation has uprooted itself ever so slightly. It recontextualizes her character, her emotions, her mindset. It changes your emotions, where you may even find yourself conflicted on how to feel. Is this even all real? Could she truly be doing this to create a better world, or is it all a ploy to get something else? For this to happen, she needs to completely control the Chainsaw Man and Denji directly, but theoretically, there may be a bit of difficulty doing this to such a level. The reason I mention this is because you would naturally think she's already got Denji under her thumb. He's fighting for her right now, but the way she's talking about Chainsaw Man and splits it from Denji rather specifically and aggressively, it makes me think she may also have to get through to Pochita, as the two are merged together at the heart. Makima even mentions that if she were to fail in controlling Chainsaw Man and not being able to provide peace and happiness by erasing death, war, hunger, alongside other things from existence, her wish would be fulfilled, as she would feel honored to be eaten by him as they would become one. In her words, there is no greater privilege in the world. This chapter changes everything. Our understanding, our knowledge, our perspective. Everything has warped and shifted into a completely different direction. Makima as a character has shifted into a completely different direction, with the reveal of a mindset that came from left field. Something that I don't think any of us expected, or was even ready for, as we were just comfy to the idea of her being a complete monster through and through. With how this new information was utilized, how it's recontextualized the story once again, Makima has now become become even more of an unpredictable and uneasy character that spreads such an eerily unsettling type atmosphere. This foundation that has been built for the rest of the narrative to set off from is supported by the underlying roots of the previous 80 chapters almost perfectly. It's created such a confliction within readers, where our emotions and understanding are potentially fighting each other to reach equal footing. You wouldn't have this without Makima and the presence she upholds. You wouldn't have this type of response to this chapter without the context and events that happened just previously. Everything was beautifully crafted to blindside all of us on so many different levels, to make us feel a certain way, to have us react so deeply to specific things, all for it to be completely misinterpreted and contextualized further to have such a powerful and piercing effect and evolution. This chapter was eye-opening. We now know what type of game the author is somewhat playing and how he treats his characters and narrative. However, the future of Chainsaw Man is just as unpredictable. We may see some sort of outcome with Makima and Denji eventually fighting each other, but the beats in between, the characters introduced, and the emotional manipulation that's on the way is uncertain. But I'm more than excited to see where we go from here, and if Chainsaw Man continues to subvert our expectations in so many unique and powerful ways while elevating itself into new obtainable heights. We are only getting started. With that being said, let me know how you feel about this chapter, more specifically Makima and Denji. I'd love to hear your thoughts. But I want to thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Drink plenty of water, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.